Hello everybody, this is Bird Brain, and here we are nerdy for the birdies. The Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Carolina Panthers narrowly 22-16, and I'll be honest, I'm not very happy about the way this game went, and I think most fans aren't either. This was a very sloppy game, and I'm going to go into my honest thoughts about it, because, I'll be honest, a better team comes in today and beats the Eagles, and this was a day that the Eagles were very beatable, and if you have championship aspirations, you cannot put games like this on tape. It's the NFL, anyone can beat anyone, but it felt like a lot of today the Eagles were beating themselves, but let's talk about it more in detail. And the first thing I want to start with is that the Eagles have to stop the slow starts. This is getting ridiculous. It is week 14. Early in the season, when you're still learning a new offense and you're trying to get certain players involved, I understand it. It is week 14. You cannot continuously leave the first quarter without scoring points. And granted, yes, they're good enough to make up for it, but you realize how good you'd be if you did just score in the first quarter? I mean, you're dominating teams without doing so. Imagine if you did. I mean, this is just frustrating. I mean, you got pushed around today a little bit. Carolina had the lead. Not by much, it was only 3, and they scored early in the second, but it's just one of those things where it's like, dang, like, they have to stop this. And I felt like if there was any day that the Eagles could stop it, it would be today. They had the advantage. They were the best rushing offense going up against the worst rushing defense, and granted, they had success running the football, but they got away from it. And there's a lot of reasons and a lot of blame to go around for what happened, you know, and why we struggled so much offensively. And to an extent, defensively, because the defense wasn't playing on all cylinders early. It just felt like everything was just sluggish, but the slow starts have to stop, because the defense can't be expected to hold teams down long enough for us to get going. You have to be able to start fast in this league. The best teams can do that. And a lot of people consider the Eagles one of the best teams, myself included. But if they can't start fast, that's going to kill them in a game. And we've seen it already happen when they played Tampa. They were down 21-0. At that point, what are you doing? You're just praying Tampa turns the ball over or stops scoring at that point. It's just too much too soon. You've got to be able to play quicker. You've got to be able to play quicker. I mean, we're the only team this year that has failed to score an opening drive touchdown. They have one touchdown in the first quarter, which was a touchdown pass to Saquon against the Giants, but that wasn't the opening drive. Every other team in the league has at least one opening drive touchdown. I want you to really think about that for a second. That includes teams like the Raiders, the Jaguars, some of the worst teams in the league right now, the Giants. They have done better on opening drives than the Eagles have. That's not good. And with all the talent on this offense, and I think blame goes to some of the coaching staff. I think some of it goes to Kellen Moore and the other offensive coaches. Some of it goes to the players and Jalen Hurts, and I think this is a great time to shift to Jalen. I think this is the worst game Jalen Hurts has played since the bye week, and I'll be honest, his performances have kind of steadily been trending down in recent weeks. I just don't think he's seeing the field very well. There's a few times where I thought, okay, pull the trigger, throw it, and he just doesn't do it, and I don't know why. And it's like, if you're not throwing it against the Panthers defense, who, their defense isn't that bad, like, their defense isn't that bad as a whole, but, like, you're gonna play better defenses. You gotta be able to just let it rip. I don't know if, like, people are in his ear about the interceptions earlier in the year, and maybe that's why he's not letting it rip as much, but you're only gonna throw it, you know, around 20 times a game. If we're not letting it rip on those throws, then I don't know when we're going to do it. I mean, he played 4 quarters today. And he barely threw for 100 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. But it's one of those things where it's like, I get we want to run the ball and be a run-heavy team. But we can't do that and have an inefficient passing game. You can be a run-heavy team and have an efficient passing game. And this is not about the passing attempts, it's what you do with those attempts. And it just felt like they were missed reads, or it felt like hesitation to just throw the ball and put it into tight windows. And that was something Jalen hasn't really, that's not really something he's been nervous about. He's been pretty good throwing into tight windows. I don't know if there's been some sort of like person in his ear telling him maybe to stop doing it as much because of the turnovers he's had in recent years. I don't know, but This is not playoff caliber quarterbacking right now. They got to fix that, and I think Jalen knows it, and I trust he'll get it done. I think this is the kind of game you need to wake up to kind of change some things in the passing game. I think some of this is the concepts as well. It just is frustrating to watch, and they have a good run game, and it served them well. They got some good conversions, but it's like when it's time to drop back and pass, you kind of almost hold your breath a little bit because it's just been so choppy. It was choppy against Baltimore. It was fine against the Rams. It was choppy against the Commanders. They got to do something better to get a more consistent passing game because that will not last you long in the playoffs. And I want to talk about the defense because defensively, I thought this was probably the worst performance since the bye week. There were so many missed tackles, so many missed plays here and there. It just felt like the discipline wasn't there as much. Milton Williams jumping off sides. I thought Cooper DeJean kind of looked like a rookie today. Not necessarily doing his best. I mean, Adam Thielen looked like prime Adam Thielen today. And they really could have lost because of this defense. They had multiple opportunities to get to Bryce Young. They couldn't sack him. They couldn't really... they pressured him. They forced him out of the pocket. They made him uncomfortable, but they could never bring him down. It's just rush lane integrity didn't feel great. I didn't think the run defense wasn't particularly good either. And these are things that better teams can exploit. And these are things that the Eagles have been good at all year. Like, they've been a much better tackling team in recent weeks. They've been a better run defensive team. They've gotten pressure to the quarterback and finished. So I don't know what's going on today. I honestly wonder if this team is just, you just played a very physical game against Baltimore. Maybe you're a little bit out of it. But you cannot play football like this defensively. And they made plays here and there. CJ Gardner-Johnson got the picks. Slay made the play at the end. We'll talk more about him later. It just felt very uneven. It just didn't feel as physical as we're used to seeing. And when you're having the Panthers outgain you in time of possession and probably yardage, I haven't looked yet, that's probably why that's happening. Now, I don't want to be completely negative. Obviously, there's some things to highlight the positivity in this game. The defense getting another pick, it was good to see that. Grant Calcaterra catching his first career touchdown. And of course, Saquon Barkley, becoming the all-time Eagles single-season rushing leader. It's actually insane the things that he's done this year. He has the most 100-yard games as a running back in Eagles history. He has the most yards, and this is only his 13th game. And, the 100 yards that he had today felt fairly casual. Like, oh yeah, Saquon got 100. Okay, whatever. It didn't really feel like it. It didn't feel as heavily impactful as he has been in other weeks. Maybe that's just because of how dominant he's been. But, obviously I don't want to ignore the positives here. I don't want to miss the forest for the trees. I think I said that phrase right, but anyway. A couple things you want to highlight, some positive notes here and there. Nice to have Devontae back as well. It just, still isn't a game that I'm really ready to wrap my arms around. Now, my last point, and I'm not a big fan of doing this, because look, officiating is ridiculously difficult, and I think football is over-officiated and under-officiated, but that's a video for another time. It's very frustrating, but the Eagles, man, they gotta start calling holding against this defense. And not what I mean by against this defense, I mean for the offense's holding against this defense. Because there were several times in this game that players were held, and there was not a single flag thrown. You have Grant Calcaterra face smashed to the ground right in front of an official, no flag. And that's not the reason why the Eagles almost lost this game. Because, look, it happens. You can't let officiating dictate the game, which is why you have to play better, because if you don't get the breaks, you don't get the calls, this is what happens. You hang around these games. I mean, there was holding calls there should have been holding calls galore. There was a play, Cooper DeJean comes in on a blitz, and he is basically bear hugged by Chuba Hubbard. No flag. Jalix Hunt is trying to sack Bryce Young on a bootleg. He gets grabbed. No flag. And it's just frustrating. And some of the reason why they didn't have any sacks, that's it. Right there. Holding, grabbing, pulling, nothing. No flag. And I'm not someone who thinks like the league is rigged and all that, but it is kind of frustrating to be like, well, maybe the league just wants this game to be more competitive, but it's just frustrating to watch, This is the second week in a row, multiple holding calls not called. I don't know, officiating has got to get better. So for player of the game, I'll be honest, is hard to give after a performance like this where I felt the team really was uneven. I was originally going to give it to C.J. Gardner-Johnson because I thought he had some great moments. He had a big hit on Xavier Legette early. He had the pick, and he came back twice from some pretty big hits as well after being injured and being out the game for a bit. I'm also going to give a small shout out to Avonte Maddox. He's been criticized a lot by Eagles fans this week, and really all season. And he comes and he gets a great play on special teams to pin the Panthers down. He came in and played safety. I thought he did okay because I didn't really notice him. But my player of the game is going to be Darius Slay. Big play Slay. And honestly, if you told me at halftime I'd be giving it to him, it would not feel like it. But Slay, as the game got on, started to make a lot of impactful plays. And he started to show out like a true number one corner. And look, early on he didn't play very well. Right? He was giving up catches. He had a penalty against him. It just wasn't good. But to turn it around, especially in that 2-minute drive, he made some big plays and, of course, has the game-stealing PBU. You feel good about it if you're Slay. And it's just those little things that are frustrating. But the fact that he could turn it around, show his veteran prowess on that play is very good. So, yeah, not our best performance. I didn't really want to mention Jake Elliott in this game as a point just because it seemed like the wind was affecting both kickers. It felt like the wind, it's like 23 miles per hour today, so I'm not going to crucify him for it, but they got to clean this up. You feel good, you win 9 games in a row, but it's not going to matter when you get to the playoffs and you play the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings. You can't make the same mistakes that you make in this game against those teams or you will lose. So with that, we move on to the Steelers. That looks like it's going to be a pretty tough game in Philly. This is Bird Brain. Hope you enjoyed being nerdy today. Fly, Eagles, fly. See you around.